Story 1. Have you ever looked at a statue and gotten the feeling it was looking back at you? Not in an art moves the soul kind of way, but in a it knows your name and is waiting for you to turn your back kind of way. I used to laugh at those thoughts until that November night last year, the night I learned that Ronald McDonald's smile isn't always friendly. It started with a dare, like all stupid stories from your youth. Me, Mark, and Sarah were sitting in my beat-up Ford, stuffing our faces with French fries and complaining about how boring our small Ohio town was. The McDonald's at the end of the street was the only place open after 10 p.m., and it had a local specialty, a statue of Ronald McDonald sitting on a bench, old and peeling. "Have you guys heard the legend?" Sarah asked, her mouth still full of Big Mac. "They say that clown moves at night." Mark snorted. "Moves where? To apply for a job at Burger King? That's nonsense." I chimed in too. He probably gets bored sitting alone and goes to find some garden gnomes to play cards with. We all laughed, the confident laugh of kids who think they know everything. And then Sarah, with a mischievous look in her eyes, stared right at me. "You're the bravest of the bunch, Jack. I dare you to stay and watch him for one night. $100. $100. To a kid working part-time at a grocery store, that was a fortune. My skepticism and my pride flared up. "Piece of cake," I declared. "Tomorrow night, I'll sit here all night and prove to you that clown is just a lifeless piece of plastic." God, if I could go back and punch myself in the face right then, I would. The next night, I parked my car across the street, facing the McDonald's. Mark and Sarah had sent me good luck texts, along with a few mocking memes. I laughed, telling myself I was about to make the easiest $100 of my life. I brought a thermos of coffee, a bag of cookies, and my fully charged phone. The plan was to take a picture of the clown every 30 minutes as proof. The first few hours passed slowly and boringly. The Ronald statue just sat there, his permanent, soulless smile plastered on his chalky white face. The streetlight cast his shadow long across the sidewalk, which was a little creepy, but that was it. I started to get sleepy. The coffee wasn't helping much. I leaned my head against the car window, my eyes getting heavy, thinking I should have just stayed home and watched a movie. Around 2 a.m., when the streets were completely deserted, I suddenly woke up, not because of any noise, but because of a feeling that something was wrong. I rubbed my eyes and looked at the statue. It was still there, still sitting, but something was different. I squinted. It seemed like its head was tilted slightly to the right, more than before. I shook my head, scolding myself for being paranoid from lack of sleep. It was probably just my viewing angle changing when I leaned my head. To be sure, I pulled out my phone and compared it to the picture I took at midnight. My heart began to pound. It was true. In the old photo, the clown's head was looking straight ahead. Now it was tilted at about a 10-degree angle, as if it were curiously looking towards my car.
Someone must have come out and messed with it, I told myself, though there was no one on the street. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. It's the wind, or the ground settled. All feeble excuses. I decided not to take my eyes off it anymore. I stared at the statue until my eyes were dry and stinging. And then I saw it. Clearly. One of the fingers on its waving hand curled. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, but it curled. My throat went dry. This wasn't a hallucination. It wasn't the wind. A solid block of plastic can't just curl its finger. I shakily raised my phone, trying to record it, but my hands were trembling so much the image was just a blur. And then, the most terrifying thing happened. The Ronald statue slowly turned its head. Not just a slight tilt this time. This time, its plastic head turned a full 90 degrees to face me directly. The sound it made wasn't the scrape of plastic, but a dry, sharp crack, like the sound of a neck being snapped. Its smile now seemed aimed right at me, and in the darkness, its two black eye sockets looked like two bottomless pits. I was frozen. My whole body was paralyzed with fear. I wanted to scream, to start the car and speed away, but I couldn't move. I could only sit there, staring at the plastic monster that was staring back at me. And then it stood up. It didn't stand up like a normal person. It bent forward, placed its hands on the ground, and then slowly, awkwardly, unnaturally straightened its legs behind it. The sound of its plastic joints grinding together was sickening. It stood there, towering under the streetlight, its shadow like a giant spider. That moment broke my paralysis. Survival instinct kicked in. I turned the key, the engine roaring to life and shattering the night silence. Just as I was about to shift into gear, I heard a sound that made my blood run cold. Thump, thump, thump. It was the sound of its oversized clown shoes hitting the pavement. It was running towards me. I floored the gas, the tires screeching on the asphalt. I didn't dare look in the rearview mirror, but I could hear the footsteps getting closer. Thump, 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 faster than I could have ever imagined. I risked a glance. For a split second, I saw its white face, its smile stretched from ear to ear right behind my car. I screamed, pushing the pedal to the floor, the car rocketing into the night. I don't know where I drove. I just knew I had to get as far away from that town as possible. I ran red lights, nearly caused accidents, but I didn't care. I drove for a full hour before I dared to stop at a brightly lit gas station. My heart was still pounding like a drum. I shakily got out of the car and looked behind me. Nothing, just a dark, empty road. I never went back to that town. I called my parents, made up some stories so I could transfer schools. I blocked Mark and Sarah's numbers. I didn't want to explain. They wouldn't have believed me. Who would? Sometimes, at night, when I'm alone, I still hear that sound, the faint thump, thump, thump in the distance. And every time I pass the McDonald's, I don't dare look at the clown statue. I'm afraid that one day it'll recognize me. It'll turn its head, smile, and start to stand up. So, the next time you see a Ronald McDonald statue, please don't look into its eyes for too long. Don't challenge it, and definitely don't ever turn your back on it, because you never know when it might get tired of sitting and decide to go for a little walk.
Story 2. They say you should never take a job in a place older than your own country, especially when that place is a McDonald's. I didn't listen. I needed tuition money, and the McDonald's in Lewiston, New York was hiring. The pay was decent, the hours flexible. The only catch, it was located inside the Frontier House, an ancient stone building from 1824, rumored to be one of the most haunted places in the state. Great, I thought during the interview. Ghost hunting while flipping burgers, a dream job. I joked about it with the manager, a middle-aged woman named Brenda. She didn't laugh. "Just be careful, sweetie," she said, her voice serious. "This building has its own guests. They were here long before we brought in the grills and ice cream machines. Just respect them and they'll leave you alone." I nodded, trying to suppress a smile. "Yes, ma'am. I'll remember not to spill ketchup on their ghostly bed sheets." Brenda just sighed. My first few shifts were normal. Flip burgers, dump fries, clean tables. My coworkers would occasionally tell me spooky stories about footsteps on the second floor, which was sealed off, about shadows flickering in the corner of your eye, about sudden cold spots even when you were standing next to the grill. I just laughed and figured it was their way of hazing the new girl. I even nicknamed the main ghost Casper, the burger-loving ghost. Oh, my sweet, pathetic innocence. It started
subtly. One evening, while I was cleaning the dining area, I was certain I had wiped down every table. I turned away to get more paper towels, and when I turned back, one table was askew, with a small ring of condensation in the middle, as if someone had just set a cold glass down. No one else was in the area. Must have missed one, I muttered, knowing I was lying to myself. Another time, I was on the late-night drive-thru shift. I had my headset on, waiting for the next order. Suddenly, I heard a very faint whisper through the earpiece. It wasn't a customer's voice. It was a woman's voice, very distant, humming an old tune I'd never heard before. I took the headset off. Silence. I put it back on. The humming resumed. It sounded like a sad lullaby. I started to feel uneasy. The jokes about Casper weren't funny anymore. I tried to find rational explanations. The floor was uneven, the headset was picking up radio interference, but deep down, a cold dread was beginning to creep in. This building was alive. The final straw was when I was working alone in the kitchen. I turned my back to the grill to grab some cheese slices. When I turned back, a half-cooked burger patty on the grill had flipped itself over to the other side. I froze, staring at the sizzling meat. There was no draft, no one else was there. It just flipped, as if an invisible hand had just done my job for me. This time, I couldn't come up with an excuse.
The real terror arrived on a rainy Tuesday night. It was late, and it was just me and a coworker named Dave. Dave was cleaning out front, and I was on drive-thru. The order screen suddenly lit up. "Hello, welcome to McDonald's. Can I take your order?" I said into the microphone out of habit. There was no reply, but on the screen, an order began to appear, item by item. A whiskey sour, roasted venison, cornbread. These were 19th century menu items, not McDonald's. I looked out the drive-thru window. There wasn't a single car, just the thick curtain of rain. "Dave," I called out, my voice trembling, "get over here and look at this." Dave ran in, looked at the screen, and his face went pale. "It's him again," he whispered. "Who's him?" "They say it's the ghost of one of the original owners of the Frontier House. He still orders sometimes." Just then, a raspy, ancient voice crackled through the headset. The voice wasn't angry, just tired and confused. "Young lady, this inn, it has changed so much." I ripped the headset off and threw it on the counter. My heart felt like it was going to burst out of my chest. This wasn't just little signs anymore. This was direct contact. A spirit from another century was trying to order food at a McDonald's. The absurdity and horror of the situation were too much for me to handle. I was going to quit after that night, but I really needed the money. I told myself I would just try to ignore it, a fatal mistake. It seemed that my acknowledgement of their existence had opened some kind of door. The phenomena were no longer subtle, they became violent. One busy Friday night, the kitchen was in full swing. Orders were piling up. Everyone was stressed. Suddenly, the McFlurry machine turned on by itself, spraying vanilla ice cream all over the floor. At the same time, all the deep fryers started blaring their overheat alarms, even though the temperatures were normal. People started to panic. As I ran to turn off the ice cream machine, a stack of metal trays on a nearby shelf flew straight at me. I screamed and dove to the floor as the trays clattered around me, missing my head by inches. Brenda, the manager, pulled me up. "They don't like chaos," she yelled over the noise. "Our stress agitates them." But that wasn't all. An angry, guttural voice echoed through the kitchen, drowning out the machines. "Get out of my house." No one could explain where the voice came from. It was everywhere. Other employees started screaming. Some ripped off their aprons and ran outside. The McDonald's kitchen had turned into a scene from a horror movie.
I ran out with the others. Brenda had to close the restaurant early that night. She offered to pay me for the whole week if I would just come back and help her clean up and close. Foolishly, I agreed. When we returned, the McDonald's was silent. A silence that was even more terrifying than the chaos. We cleaned in silence, just wanting to get it over with and leave. As I was taking out the trash in the back, I heard a noise from the second floor, the sealed-off area. It wasn't the footsteps of one person, it was the sound of many people, whispering, pacing, the faint giggle of a child. I stood frozen at the bottom of the stairs. Through the crack under the door to the second floor, I could see shadows moving. Not one, but dozens of shadows gliding back and forth. I realized a horrifying truth. This wasn't Casper the burger-loving ghost. This wasn't the ghost of one innkeeper. The frontier house was home to all the spirits who had ever been attached to it over the last 200 years. Soldiers, travelers, people who died in fires, children. And they were right above my head. I didn't say a word to Brenda. I quietly put down my broom, walked out the front door, and never looked back. I didn't even collect my paycheck. Now, whenever I drive near Lewiston, I always take a detour. I don't want to get close to the frontier house. I'm afraid that if I get too close, one of those guests might recognize me. And maybe, this time, they won't just want an order an old-fashioned meal. Maybe they'll want a new companion.
Story 3. In my line of amateur ghost hunting, you always dream of finding Class A evidence, a clear voice from the other side, an undeniable apparition. I used to dream of it. Now I just wish I'd never found it. I wish I had left that damn audio recorder in the McDonald's in Pueblo, Colorado. My team, the Neighborhood Night Stalkers, a cheesy name my friend Alex came up with for fun, was just 3 people. Me, Bao, the tech guy, Alex, the brave one who always went first, and Maya, who did the research and history on the locations. We treated it as a hobby, a way to escape our boring lives. We'd investigated cemeteries, old theaters, but never found anything more than creaky floorboards and our own imaginations. Then Maya found it, an online article about a McDonald's in Pueblo, Colorado. Employees reported hearing strange sounds around 3 a.m., screams, voices in an unknown language, and most disturbingly, a woman barking. Sounds like a prank, said Alex. Probably just someone with a Bluetooth speaker messing with people. But it's so specific, Maya countered. Multiple employees have quit. They say it happens at the same time in the same area of the restaurant. I thought, a haunted McDonald's? That sounds both ridiculous and fascinating. We decided it would be our next investigation. Surprisingly, the manager, probably tired of the rumors, agreed to let us in after closing on the condition that we didn't disturb anything. "Knock yourselves out," he said. "Maybe you can figure out why my ice cream machine is always broken." We got there on a Friday night. The atmosphere inside a McDonald's at midnight is bizarre. It's unsettlingly quiet. The smell of old grease hangs in the air. The Ronald McDonald statue in the play place seemed to be watching us with its stiff smile. We set up our gear. A few infrared cameras, an EMF meter, and, of course, my high-sensitivity digital audio recorder. I placed it right in the middle of the restaurant where the employees said they heard the sounds. Then we waited and waited. An hour passed, 2 hours. Nothing happened. The EMF meter was silent. The cameras only recorded us yawning. Alex started telling bad jokes. Maya was scrolling on her phone. I was starting to think about the $100 I'd wasted on gas.
Maybe the ghosts are only interested in scaring minimum wage kids, Alex said, chewing on a candy bar. They're not bouldered by pros like us. We decided to call it a night. It was around 2:30 a.m. We packed up our gear, I turned off the recorder, and we left, feeling a bit disappointed but not surprised. Well, at least we have a funny story to tell, Maya said. We had no idea the real story was just beginning.
The next morning, I warily put on my headphones and started listening back to the 2-hour-plus recording. Most of it was just white noise, our own whispers, the sound of Alex crunching on his candy. I was about to give up, fast-forwarding to the end to delete the file. And then I stopped. Right after the sound of the door closing as we left, there was about 15 minutes of silence. And then it started. A whisper, very faint. I had to crank the volume to the max to hear it. It wasn't English. It was an ancient, guttural language. Then more voices joined in, creating a chaotic mess of sound. My heart started beating faster. I kept listening. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream, full of pain, came through so clearly as if it was someone had screamed directly into the microphone. I flinched and threw my headphones off. With a trembling hand, I put them back on. After the scream came a sound that made my skin crawl. A woman, barking. Not the bark of a dog. It was a human, mimicking the sound in a way that was frenzied, aggressive, and full of hate. I had found it. Class A evidence. Clear, undeniable. I was both thrilled and terrified. I immediately called Alex and Maya. At first, we were ecstatic. We listened to the recording dozens of times. This was our biggest success. We posted a short clip on a ghost hunting forum and got a huge response. We felt like heroes. That excitement didn't last long. About a week later, Alex called me in the middle of the night, his voice panicked. He said he heard barking, not from his computer, but from the hallway outside his apartment. He looked through the peephole, but saw no one. I thought he was just being paranoid, but the next day Maya called. She said she was home alone and heard people whispering in that strange language from inside her closet. And then it was my turn. I was working on my computer when I heard the scream, the exact same scream from the recording. It came from my computer speakers even though I didn't have the audio file open. I checked, the file was closed. From then on, things got worse. We all felt like we were being watched. Shadows darting in the corners of our vision, objects moving on their own, and the sounds, the barking, the whispers, the screams, they would appear at the most random times in the most impossible places. We didn't dare to be alone anymore. In a panic, I decided I had to get rid of it. I opened my laptop, found the audio file named McDonald's Pueblo EVP.wav. I dragged it to the trash. I hit empty trash. The next day, it was back on my desktop. I tried everything. I reformatted the hard drive. I reinstalled the operating system. But somehow, that damned audio file always came back. Finally, I did the only thing I could think of. I took a hammer and smashed my laptop to pieces. I smashed the audio recorder too. I threw the fragments into a public dumpster miles from my house. I thought it was over. But that night, as I was lying in bed, trying to fall asleep, I heard it again. The woman's bark. This time, it wasn't coming from any electronic device. It was coming from inside my head. I understand now. That recording wasn't just evidence. It was a container, a curse, a kind of supernatural virus. And when we listened to it, we'd been infected. It had attached itself to us. Alex has moved in with his parents. Maya won't leave her house. And me, I'm telling you this story. I don't know what to do anymore. The voices in my head are getting louder. So listen to me. Never get curious about things you don't understand. Don't go looking for the darkness, because sometimes you'll find it. And once it finds you, it will never let go. It will follow you home. It will crawl inside your head, and it will stay there forever.